Here we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Lamar, and I am an executive board member for Pasadena Organizing for Progress. And tonight we want to welcome you all here for Pasadena's first Police Oversight Commission. Where do we go from here? I think that's a question that we have all asked ourselves from last year, even before last year. And so now we're getting ready to start this conversation. Tonight is another Let's Talk, Let's Learn series of community forums moderated by James Farr, the host of the Conversation Live. And now I would like to introduce to you all the award-winning journalist and host of the Conversation Live and one of the producers of the critically acclaimed documentary Thorns of the Rose, Black Abuse, Corruption, and the Pasadena Police, James Farr, to moderate tonight's discussion. Let's welcome James Farr, everyone. James?
Yes, I am here. Good evening. Good evening. And Brandon, thank you so much. Thank everybody for being here. Thank the panelists. Thank our Spanish translators. Again, welcome to, this has been an ongoing series of conversations that have been done in partnership and collaboration with community organizations such as POP. And we want to thank you for being here with us tonight. We're going to honor your time. We're starting on time. We're scheduled to be here until about 8:30. If we need more time, as long as we have your permission, we'll certainly add that time. If we don't, we'll get out of here a little bit early. So if you're watching on Facebook on the Conversation Live, you can keep the dialogue going by liking and sharing. And you folks that are joining us here via Zoom in the webinar, you're welcome to, if you have questions for the panelists who will meet in just a few moments, go ahead and put those questions in the chat. We'll do our best to get them into tonight's discussion. So we have an
before we start though. So for our Spanish listeners, can we let the instructors give the instructions for the Spanish translation, Ada?
Yes, thank you, Flo.
Good evening, everybody. We will be interpreting tonight's event into Spanish, and we'll be using this Zoom interpreting feature. In a few moments, when the feature is activated, you will see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen. Be sure to select that globe icon and choose English so that you can fully participate and be able to hear when anything is interpreted from Spanish to English. And I'll be giving instructions as well in Spanish. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por estar aquí para este evento del Comité Supervisorio. El evento de hoy se va a interpretar al español. Entre unos momentos vamos a activar la opción de interpretación en Zoom. Y para poder usar esta configuración, en unos momentos verán un globo terráqueo en la pantalla de Zoom, en la parte inferior, casi en la esquina. Seleccione ese globo terráqueo y luego seleccione español. Después de eso puedes seleccionar silenciar audio original o mute original audio para solo escuchar la interpretación. Y si está usando una tableta o un teléfono inteligente, busque el menú de 3 puntos y elija interpretación de idiomas, luego seleccione español y silencie el audio original. Y otros consejos, recuerden de silenciar su micrófono y recuerden que esta opción no está disponible si están usando un Chromebook o un teléfono corriente. Muchísimas gracias y entre unos momentos podrán ver el globo y para poder participar. You can start the interpreting feature now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So let's go ahead and meet our panelists for tonight. And what we want to talk about with the panelists, they spent a total of 30 hours through training over the summer with the Pasadena Police Department. So tonight we want to unpack what that experience was, some of the things that they learned, as well as get a better understanding, if they have an understanding, of what their role is as commissioners. So first I'd like to, and I'll introduce them and then we'll give them all an opportunity to speak. Esprit Jones is a social justice advocate and a crisis counselor. She was appointed by Council Member Tyron Hampton. We have Raul Ibanez, a student equity advocate at Pasadena City College, appointed by Council Member Jess Rivas. That's District 5, and Esprit is District 1. Then we have Florence Annang, who is the founder of Thrive Learning Lab, and Juliana Serrano, Vice President of Advocacy and Equity at Planned Parenthood of Pasadena and the San Gabriel Valley. Both Florence and Juliana were appointed by the city council member as representatives of community-based organizations. So I want to first welcome Spree in, and Spree, can you kind of share with us your journey, a little bit more about your background so the community at large can get to know you?
Good evening, James. Thank you. And hi, everybody. The true start of my journey that put me into full-fledged advocacy and activism was Anthony McLean was shot in the back on the street that I live on. And it allowed me to, or pushed me to connect with community members. My background as a domestic violence advocate and counselor, and moving forward to be a crisis counselor, it kind of just all blends into the same work. And that's what more or less led to applying for the commission and my interest in the role.
Okay, thank you, Spree. Raul?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Raul Ibanez. My pronouns are he, him, el. I'm a homegrown product of Pasadena, specifically Northwest Pasadena District 5. That is the district I currently represent. What got me here to the Oversight Commission is essentially work that I've been doing for a long time now. My educational and professional experience dates over 15 years of living with, working with, organizing with communities that are most impacted by policing. I myself experienced the impacts of Pasadena PD as a resident here growing up since I was a kid to adulthood right now. I come from a mixed status family who also experienced the impacts of Pasadena PD. So I'm just here to learn. I'm here to listen, and I'm here to give a friendly push to whoever that needs it. But thank you for your time.
Thanks, Raul. Florence?
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. A part of being Pasadena's Organizing for Progress has just been my journey, probably from the beginning of being involved with CCOP. And CCOP is just a group of people who are intentional about learning about, police reform and all the rest of it. But apart from that, it's just been a learning of listening to the community, learning from the community, especially through my after school and the parents, and understanding that there's things we don't know and things that we'll never know, and things that just don't make sense, and policies and procedures that it could be time for it to change. So I think on that journey is what brought me to this seat. So, and I would like to just at this moment give a shout out to Villa Park right now, who is streaming for this, for everybody there, especially our Pasadena Job Center people. And Thank you so much for joining in and being a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Florence. Juliana?
Hi, James. Good evening, everyone. My name is Juliana Serrano. My pronouns are she, ella. I am the proud daughter of Colombian immigrants and a resident of Pasadena in District 7. I've been living here for almost 10 years now, and I have been a social justice advocate for my entire career. So probably about 20 years now, focusing on community development, social justice movements. I was working at All Saints Church when Pasadena experienced the murder of Kendrick McDade. And that was how I got specifically involved in policing issues and police reform. And so I connected with several community members that were asking some tough questions and put ourselves in a place of learning and growing and challenging. And that work developed into CCOP, which I have been a member of over the years. I'm also a board member of Pasadena's Organizing for Progress, who focuses on police reform efforts as
Okay, thank you, Juliana. I want to, and John, if you could pull up, so I think I really want to kind of cut straight to a lot of this stuff because I'm not quite sure I understand what exactly the commission does, and I know that the four of you are only 4 members of that commission and don't necessarily speak for that entire body or of the opinions of the other commissioners. So I'm really aiming to have this discussion kind of with through the lens and understanding of what the experience is to date, like where are we now, because the community feels that they don't have a good grasp or understanding of what the commission is. And so, John, if can we pull up, and this is from the city charter, we can put the link in the chat as well, so you guys can read this information for yourself, so you understand exactly what the charter is. Are you able to share that screen, John?
Hold on one second. I'm putting the link in the chat. And let me share screen.
So essentially, and John will get that up, in section 2.60, 110, purpose and functions, says the purpose of the commission is to enhance, develop, strengthen community police relations and review and make recommendations regarding the ongoing operations of the police department to the chief of police, city manager, and/or city council. My question to, and any of you can kind of take a stab at that. Do you have an understanding of what your job is as a community police oversight commissioner? Anybody want to jump at it first? Raul.
I'm gonna
go Spree.
I'm gonna say it's not really clear what the role is, and it was asked, I'm sure, at least several times in those 30 hours. And it was kind of expressed that once we meet as a body, we better understand then what our role is. Am I right, guys?
Juliana?
Yeah, well, I would say, James, in a way, it's still sort of unfolding. It's still sort of to be determined. I mean, we haven't yet even had a meeting. You mentioned this training that we've all undergone, but we still haven't convened ourselves and determined for ourselves how we're going to operate, what our rhythm is going to be, what are the first items we're going to tackle. So I think that's still under development. But I will say, as a community member who has been deeply concerned about how Black and brown bodies are impacted by police violence, that we really needed to create a structure or mechanism by which the community's voice would be present and actively changing the way our police department functions. And so that is, in sort of big theory, what I'm thinking we are all showing up as that community voice, that we can offer the perspective of our neighbors and amplify those voices in the formal city government structure to make improvements to the police department so that we don't see the kind of violence we've seen in Pasadena, and certainly the kind of violence we've seen across the nation.
Okay. I mean, that's certainly a macro, but Flo, how about you?
I think our role, first of all, is we're going to have to create some form of a work plan. But even before that, we're going to have to get to know each other. I think somebody put in the chat, like, what's our individual agendas? The fact is that we're all coming as individuals, we're all coming in with biases, but we're definitely, or hopefully, let me say, are coming in to work for the community. And so we're going to have to unlearn some stuff. We're going to learn some stuff. We're going to wrestle with one another. But at the end of the day is right now, I think we're all saying the same thing. We've been told that we will be told how, not what we're going to do, but how we're to operate. That's what I feel I've heard, how we're going to operate, and how we can be. The difference in our commission is us four were all chosen in a different route to including Miss Abernathy as well. Were all chosen in a different route to the other commissioners that were chosen by their city councilmen. And so it's a different blend. And so we're just going to have to get to know each other and figure out what that work plan, and then you've got to add the independent auditor as well. So
we want to talk about the auditor part of it, but right now just trying to understand what the process was. You guys spent the summer, you went through these 30 hours of training, and it sounds like none of you kind of have a clear understanding, or it has not yet been defined what a commission, what you're tasked to do.
Could I pause a sec with our translators? Is the translation working for the interpreter side? Does it show that it's working? Because someone's texting me that it's not working. I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry, James.
No problem. All right, so that was a long way around the first 30 hours that the commission did. Your training was not about being a commissioner. It was with the police department, right?
Yeah, to chime in on that, no. The entire training, it was fully dedicated to learning information about the department, the different sections, the different personnel, the different purposes of each department and how they work. If anything, we were, I don't even think discouraged is the appropriate word. We were told that we could not talk about commissioner duties because it would be in violation of what is called the Brown Act, and because what we were doing was not considered a official commissioner meeting, it was considered a training. We by law were not allowed to even speak about, to even speak to each other, but let alone speak about the specific duties that we would do and engage in as commissioners. So from the jump, the question of what we would do and how we would do it was eliminated right off the bat and was never brought back to the forefront. So again, the goal of the training was for us to literally learn everything about the department, what they do, how they do it, who is in it, and it's a lot. It is that there are many departments with different purposes, but that's how it went.
Yeah, I mean, I sat in on half of your sessions. At times, many of you, those that had cameras on, you looked frustrated. A lot of you looked puzzled as to why you were being talked at. So what was that experience like, training with the police department and learning about their interactions? Has it changed maybe a perception or even possibly a bias you may have had before you actually went inside and did 30 hours of training?
I'll say for me, James, that all the learning that I received, not only in those 30 hours, but that I've been able to access over the years as I've been involved with this issue, makes me a better activist, right? But that knowing what I'm actually fighting against and fighting for more clearly makes me stronger as I show up in this work. And so that was sort of the spirit with which I ultimately participated in these 30 hours, but will confess that there were many, many frustrating moments, when we needed, further answers to some of our questions, wanted some more information. Flo, you want me to stop?
Yeah, I think we have an issue with, because the interpreter that was coming out over you. Okay. Do you want to repeat that? I'm sorry, because I don't think anybody
No, it's okay.
heard you, Juliana.
It's okay. And it's important that that translation happens. So I don't mind pausing. Are we caught up then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, let me say for me, the training was a lot. And I think in the beginning, it low-key was frustrating, but that didn't put apart from the fact of, yeah, we learned a lot. There was departments that I didn't know about. There's, police officers and stuff, doing some real rich and intense work and stuff like that. I think that the frustration came in maybe how the training was being given. And like you said, we couldn't even ask a question in the chat room because the chat room in the Zoom was locked, and it was like, we wanted to have some information beforehand to even just learn the slides, because it was very in-depth and it was thorough and I respected it, but it was a lot. So you kind of wanted it a little bit ahead of time so you could just read it, observe it, and even afterwards be like, okay, let me go over it again, because there's so many different learning styles. And we were only being told, this is the one you're given, like, this is the cake, anime, eat the cake. And that's how it was. And we just had to get over that hump. But, the levels of training was good. But I think if it was ever to be done again, I think a more interactive one would have been better. The feeling that we had with the last one, with the whole day, was interactive, is what everybody on any learning curve can say, I can enter in and understand. And it was two-way, but lesson learned. Like Juliana said, this is the first time, and so everything is unfolding and everybody's learning. We also got to remember, we're not under the city manager's office. We're under a different office, and so they'd never been down this road before. So a lot of times was frustration with grace.
Sure. Yeah. And just for the record, to be clear, I did contact the city attorney to get clarification on, in fact, what office or what department this commission does fall under. She did not return that email. She did return several other emails, including if the community would like to see the slides that you were presented with, maybe Pop can publish those and make those, but I have that. Spree, how much of that time with the department was spent with, I guess, an awareness of their impact on the community after critical events? Because I know you guys covered use of force, officer-involved shootings, and these are some of the things that, as a commission, you'll be tasked to review.
There wasn't much time spent on that. There were, in the last virtual training, I posed a question because community relations presented, and it was deferred to be responded to at a later date. I stated that it looks like they do a lot of good work and lots of things that I'm sure most of us didn't know about. Their reverse trick or treat looked like a really cool thing, but even as a parent, I didn't know about it. But the outreach that they do, like, they're not doing the same thing in Northwest that they're doing on the East Side or wherever the heck they have coffee with the cop. They're not doing that over here. And I'm sure it feels uncomfortable over here. This is a long time strained relationship between Northwest specifically and PPD. However, steps have to be taken to change that, and I don't believe that's necessarily the community's responsibility. At the first in-person training where we met at the heliport, it was further addressed that they're putting something in place to be able to respond at the time of critical incidents. But at this, like, it's brand new. So it's theory. But it sounded worthwhile. There wasn't a lot of time spent on relationship though.
Okay. So you guys haven't met formally yet. Have you been given a date?
Well, it's tentative. It as the email said, it's maybe the last week in October.
Mm-hmm. And that will be the first formal meeting. And so, like, how have they explained to you how the community can interact with it or be a part of it? Can they communicate with you guys directly?
No. No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. The independent auditor.
Noting, oh, sorry, I was going to say it was worth noting that at one of our first meetings, we did request that perhaps we have gain access to city email addresses for each commissioner so that the public can be in communication with us, and so that also, right, because there's all these sort of legal concerns. If there's for any reason a request to retrieve any through a records request act, right, any of our correspondence, that it would be more accessible for the city to be able to do that through a city email address. But I think ultimately we never got a response back, right? I think,
No.
and I sort of take that as a no.
Okay. I mean, you guys individually have all like said, hey, you've been an activist, you've been out there in front line. I mean, I know all of you and have seen you in the space. In terms of like empathy and hearing the community, I mean, I know our outgoing city manager said, you know, in effect, you know, he's not bothered by a half dozen people who speak out against kind of the city and their policies. So how are you guys finding space for those 6 people? Like, how are you balancing your own experiences, but also your task to go in there and objectively look at real events, real uses of force? I mean, it's not, you're no longer on the activist side. I mean, you're seeing behind the curtain. How are you going to find a balance of, you know, those two identities? Any one of you can take a stab.
It's similar to parenting. You don't tell your kids everything that's going on. You know what I mean? Like, there's some things it's kind of need to know. And being that I've had jobs where there's roles of being a mandated reporter or just paying attention to different things, those things come into play. Like, I'm sure that we all know what to not say to community members that we may meet about amongst ourselves. That's that. And regarding the 6 people that call, like, those meetings are long and obnoxious. The people that are unhappy are not going to sit through those meetings to tell you how unhappy they are. They're just crossing their fingers and hoping it's done fast. Like, there's a lot more than 6 people who are not pleased in this city of 130,000 plus, I'm sure.
Raul, how will you balance your, if you have a bias? You know, you said you've experienced policing in a not so positive way. How will you balance that when you're having to make those decisions?
Well, I think one thing that's important to come in here is to know that we don't have all the answers, and that the commission is good. I see it as a space that should be very, very collaborative with other sectors of the city. I think to tell someone that mass incarceration in Pasadena or policing in Pasadena is not connected with public health, is not connected with housing, is not connected with access to income. I would disagree with that. So I think there's a lot of factors that come into play when policing is involved and crime is involved. And I think it's very important for us to have a collaborative mindset. And I think that's a mindset that a lot of us share within the commission, which is why the training and the first experiences going into the commission were probably so frustrating for a lot of us, because a lot of us, I feel, went into the space with the intentions of working collaboratively amongst ourselves, with the police department. So it was a little disappointing to see that not being accommodated to. But I mean, to touch on some points that you mentioned earlier, this is something that I knew but has been reaffirmed after this training, is that being a police officer is a difficult job. And there are a lot of risks that come with that, and a lot of responsibilities and power that come with that. And I think that there are a lot of things that officers are being asked to do that they are not being trained for, that they are not being prepared for. And as a result, you see a lot of officers feeling like they're not appreciated anymore. So I think that presents a very good opportunity for the commission to reevaluate how things are structured and make improvements accordingly as we work together with not just this department, but other departments in the city as well.
Do you think that there's space for, when you guys are evaluating, that you factor in humanity? I mean, I get that they have a tough job and are tasked often to do jobs that perhaps they shouldn't, but when we see examples of inhumane or an excessive use of force, and I know you guys can't speak specifically about incidents right now, but when we see that, how much that's what I think the community is looking or hoping, and hope is not a strategy, but that there's someone in the room that is looking at it legally as well as ethically and with decency and humanity. Like, is that what this commission is?
I mean, absolutely. I absolutely, that you're going to sit in that seat and, like you said, 30 hours of listening to how the police do it and why they do it. Raul is absolutely right that, yo, it's a hard job, right? But in that hard job, there's a pay scale. And in that pay scale, it is what it is. It's something that you signed up for. It's something that you decided to do as a job, to enter into a community and say that you as a human being see another human being and you want to protect and serve, right? And protect and serve means that there's levels to this. And so, yeah, that this, the idea of the commission is this has to be collaborative, because this, at the end of the day, a group of people are not always going to agree on the same point. A group of people are always not going to see the same incident. A police will say something happens and a shooting takes place. They'll ask 20 witnesses, and about all 20 of them might all see different things, but they're all relatively true because it happened in that incident. They were there, right? So we've got to come to that table and figure this thing out. But I can speak for myself, is that when it comes to being able to bridge, to build a bridge of understanding, that what we as the community don't know, we don't know. And what the police, know or don't know, it's within their culture always to keep it secret and to keep this kind of like wall up to protect themselves, their culture, whatever it is. But that has started to hurt them. This whole cloak and dagger stuff has started to hurt them. And so as we sit around that table, I'm hoping that it's not just about, it's more than collaboration. It's more than, you know, you did wrong, you didn't do this, but it's more about, can we get to some policies? Can we get to some changes? Can we get to some systematic and structural things that can really move on both sides and help the community? And if we help the community, we're helping the police.
Okay. Just a couple of more things I want to ask you guys, and then John, we want to bring some of the questions in the chat. But just to recap, the commission has not met formally as a full body, either in person or online. You haven't elected a chair, a vice chair. You have not established a work plan. So we're just kind of drawing a timeline from the time everything was put into place to where we are right now. And is it fair to say we really don't have an active commission? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Independent auditor, do you guys understand what your relationship, what his role is? Brian Maxey of the Maxey Group, do you understand what his relationship is? Is he, are you guys subordinate to him, or how do you understand how all of that works?
I defer to Juliana or Raul first.
I mean, I think the short answer to that is, again, no, we're not sure. You know I was sort of wondering that, considering that as we were in our training myself, right? And the best way I can put it is that we're going to have to figure out how to dance with one another where no one's really taking the lead, right? Like we need to, as a body, be able, I imagine, to direct the IPA in certain directions, and with his investigatory authority and power. And likewise, there's going to be times where he's going to need to be able to direct us to help advance some of the work that he's working on. And so that's sort of how I imagine it working, but we have not yet had a conversation about our dynamic and what those roles will look like.
Have they discussed kind of what subpoena power means, like what procedurally have they said what items you won't be able to review? What's deemed inappropriate?
We know for sure
Yeah.
that it's always, we're not going to be able ever to touch personnel records.
That's right.
Like that's, you know, like let's just put that, that's the icing on the cake over and over again. The Police Bill of Rights, you know, snap that shut. And that would even if there was stronger subpoena, but we're never going to be able to touch personnel records. It's about the incident. that's what we're always going to come to the table for. It's
Do you
about
have,
the
will you as a commission have any say on discipline on officers?
no. No, there's recommendations. We as a commission cannot say fire a policeman. That's not what we're here for. Because as I said, the Police Bill of Rights, that's something that, you know, the independent auditor, he can, you know, there's going to be recommendations, there's going to be reports, you know, of that will, an example can be that we think it was all wrong. We think from the beginning to the middle to the end, it was all wrong, and this is how it was wrong. And these are recommendations to, you know, looking into the future or whatever. But one of the main things that we do know and is that we will never, we're not involved in any form of personnel records.
Okay. John, we have any questions in the chat? You or Brandon that you want to pull into and ask the panel?
I got two here from Sabrina Jimenez, who has 2 or 3 good ones, but here's 2 that kind of go together. Do you all feel this was created as a way to placate the community, but offer no real power or voice to us? And then also the second part was, what kind of support does this commission seek from their neighbors / community?
Good question. I'll start and then y'all can finish. Is that I think that this commission was created because of the fire of the community, the roar of the community, right? When you sit in, tell me when you've sat in city council for 4 hours and listened to records and to listen to letters and people on the phone talking about an issue. The committee rose this up. The community rose this up. The community said that we should not be under the city manager's office. The committee asked for an independent auditor. So everything here, but yes, the question to it is that the subpoena that we got is a little subpoena, but we also have to remember that if, as we go down the road and this subpoena doesn't work, we still have the right as a community to go to the ballot and ask our Pasadenas for greater increase of subpoena power. We could have done it at the time that this was being created, and we were given this little subpoena power. And so as everything unfolds, as Juliana says, we will see. But I'm sure games are going to be played. I'm sure things are gonna not make sense, but I'm believing with the intelligence of 11 commissioners that what we've come to see is to see it all and to see through it. So I hope that the community, in your second part of the question, is what do we need? You cannot go quiet. It's almost 2 years to, Anthony McLean. Well, yeah. And George Floyd, it seems quiet now. It's a brand new thing, but Pasadena cannot go quiet. We have to keep our foot on the gas or our foot on the necks of our council members to let them know that, the community is going to be behind what they have created. And I know my responsibility is hard because it is not something that I can take lightly. So the support of the community is definitely needed. You guys can chime in.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that and just want to note that, Flo and I and many others in the community have been demanding for years that the city of Pasadena bring in an independent police auditor, that we have some form of civilian oversight of the PPD, because we see these models that have formed across the nation and other communities across other departments, and the value that they have brought to policing and police community relations. And so I was thrilled when the ordinance was passed to bring in the Police Oversight Commission and the IPA. And now in this position, am looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. And I don't want to be cynical just yet, though it feels like there have been several challenges that are inviting me into that space of cynicism, like, is this really going to work? But I think it's still to be seen. And so in that regard, I ask for community to stand by our side as we embark on this journey, knowing that we don't know yet a lot, but that spirit, that passion, that activism around demanding that our police department be a better police department, not end, and that also translates to us as our work unfolds as commissioners, that we be held to the fire too, to do what is right by the community and making the community's demands heard to the police department and the city attorney's office.
Yeah, just to add on to that, to give some context, the city has been asked, the residents of Pasadena have been asking the city for an oversight, for police oversight since Rodney King was beat down by cops, who was a resident of Pasadena. So that's decades of the city, for whatever reason, not wanting this commission to be a thing. now that it is, the only reason why we're here, if you put it into context, it took a global pandemic, nationwide protests, a change in mayor, and another loss of life of one of our own residents for us to even be here. And now that we're here, we're barely building this as we go. So what I would ask from the community is that you keep that same energy to allude to what Flo and Juliana were saying. Hold us to that fire. Hold your representatives to that fire, and keep demanding more, because it's ridiculous to me that it took this long and this much for us to even have this conversation. And we're just building, and we've just barely begun. So please continue to do what you do.
How much of this for you guys are you affected, like, politically? Because again, just, to put it into context, that same timeline, February of 2020, neither former Mayor Tornick nor current Mayor Victor Gordo had an appetite for police oversight. And you're correct in terms of time frame, but Michael Zinzin was the one who actually really started pushing for police oversight through CAPA, his organization, and then Council Member John Kennedy called for it in 2016. But as I said, in 2020, there wasn't an appetite for it. Following George Floyd, both were still indifferent, and again, not until Anthony McClain was fatally shot in the back fleeing an officer. How much of this stuff, this political stuff, will impact how you guys, are you subservient to your council member that appointed you? Like, what's that dynamic? How does that work? Because y'all gonna get some smoke from the community, right? If people don't like what they see, the council will point to you, presumably.
Well, I'm gonna say that I got limited contact thus far with my council member. Initially, way back in March, April, when we had the Zoom panel interview and community nomination, he stated for me to check in regularly. So after monthly meetings, once we get to the point of meetings, to send an email with an overview of the things we discussed. But he didn't make it seem like he's my direct supervisor. or anything like that. I don't know if Raul got anything from his council member.
I can touch on that. You know, shout out to, you know, Jess Rivas, who's the District 5 council member. She's been very transparent in her process. She held public forum elections, publicized them. She holds office hours consistently in different areas of the city so that community members can openly come in and ask her questions about what she does, why she does it. And so I appreciate that. I think she also knows that D5 will hold her accountable to that because we don't play. But I can say at least for Northwest District 5, you know, I can say that I feel supported from my council member. But to answer your original question, you know, to reference a popular phrase from the 1960s civil rights movement, the personal is political. So coming in, you know, our experiences, our backgrounds, our education, all of that, whether the city, whether the department, whether our colleagues like it or not, is going to inform how we show up in these meetings. So I think it is very important to honor that. I think it's very important to acknowledge that as we come in, and I think it's important to know what everybody's politics are in the rooms that we're working with. So I welcome that. You know, community to the community, to my colleagues, I'll take all the smoke. But just know that energy should also be directed to the mayor, the council members, the department, and all of their constituents, because it's very important that collectively we give that big push together.
Thanks.
And,
John,
and I want to add on that is that and, you know, respect to D5 because I'm on D5 and she's right. She'll get old. She'll get old to smoke. Is we haven't come to play games. That's what I have not come to do. This is not like no other commission. This is not a commission that you know, we went to tea and the council member was like, hey, you know, what are your political this? Will you speak for me at the seat? You know, will you do this? I'm gonna need you to do that, or I'm leveraging you for here because I need your voice. This ain't that commission. And those that are at that seat because they did have that conversation with their council member. You know, it's going to be challenging because we haven't come to that. We haven't come to this seat for a title. there is lives at stake. Point blank, period. There's accountability at stake. There is mothers, there is families, there is children, there is victims who have felt some type of way about the way they've been treated, by the way they've been stopped, because you felt you had the power and you had the training, but you didn't have the process or the empathy to see the human. You know what I'm saying? And so we're not coming to this seat for all of that. We're coming to say we're going to hold you to the fire for all of that, for every single incident. And we also want the community to know that it's time for them, for any complaint, anything that happens that they feel, well, yo, if I send it to the police, if I do this, it's not going to be heard. This is that space where it can be unpacked. I don't want none of my, the immigrant mothers or fathers to feel some type of way, in fear or anything else for certain things that have happened to them. They need to have that space, the same way as our young Black brothers and sisters, need to have that space if they have that complaint. The complaint system for the police is horrible. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows you can put a complaint in, and it might as well just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, right? And it doesn't matter what they say of we're trying to improve it, you never hear an outcome. And so this is also that space. But politically, those people, those that know me know that I love you all until you're wrong. And when you're wrong, you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? And you have to stand up for that. Yes, 2022 is an election year that's coming up. There's people that's going to vie for seats, and there's people that are sitting in seats that are looking to protect their seats. And so all of that is going to happen in the midst of creating a new commission. So Raul said everything is political. You know what I mean? But our lives are not political.
Right.
And meeting a policeman morning, noon, or night in whatever incident should not be political. It should be them doing their job. And if it's a ticket, get a ticket. If it's a conversation, get a conversation. It's a warning, get a warning. But please get home, because I wouldn't. There's a sign in the when we did the ride along, and the other commissioners must have seen. There's a sign. I'm gonna be verbatim at the police station where the cars are parked, of like, you know, like make sure, you know, come back home safe, right? So every policeman that drives out is going to see this sign that says, you know, make sure you kind of come back home safe. And I'm paraphrasing. That's exactly what the community wants for every interaction. Like, come home safe. We got to go to court. You got to go to court. If you got to get a ticket, get a ticket. If you get a warning, get a warning. But let your family or whoever it is, or just yourself, get home safe. That's what I'm sitting in this seat for.
All right. Let's
as we continue the community questions, I'm going to ask that if the community does have questions, me and John, we're going to look through the chat, but if there's a question and answering box at the bottom, it would definitely make it easier for us to know the direct questions that you would like these commissioners to answer. And so if you can direct your questions on there, for those who've already posted their questions, we're going to continue to look at the chat and go through there as well. But I'm going to ask this one.
Well, one second, because I don't want to be accused of Brandon and not being fair.
Absolutely.
And ethical. But I want to correct you, Florence. If you do file a complaint, I filed a complaint in 2017 in the Christopher Ballou beating. I did get an answer from the police department sometime this year, just short of 4 years, and we agree that it said nothing, but I wouldn't want the chief or deputy chief or anyone to think that we weren't being fair to them. You weren't being fair. I know. I'm just.
You
Brandon,
wait. You wait.
I just want to be clear. I waited, and I got a letter, and it said nothing happened. So, Brandon, what do you have for us?
So I'm gonna make this a two-part question, because one is just a yes or no. The first part is were you all required to sign a non-disclosure agreement form? And then the second part to that question was from Heavenly, is will this commission support the voice of the community to end police brutality and hold the police accountable? It's a two-part. So the first one is just a yes or no. Were you all required to sign an NDA form? And then the second one is will this commission support the voice of the community to end police brutality and hold the police accountable?
before one of y'all answer that, as a community, we want, and I'm speaking as a member of the community, not for the community. We want ethical, we want accountability, and you know, as a commissioners are thinking their answers, but we also have to be realistic that police are violence workers, and their job at times, whether we like it or not, they will be violent. They are going to shoot and kill someone again. It's not an anomaly. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, and so I don't think the commission even understands, based on what they've said earlier, that they even know what level of accountability they have in this whole ecosystem. So, but if anyone wants to respond to that question, go ahead.
All right, let's do it like this. Just shake your head, yes or no. Where you, any of you guys ever signed a non-disclosure agreement for him?
I don't remember non-disclosure. I don't remember one.
Yeah,
I just,
I don't.
you
I
we
think
had to. We
That's-
had
their
to.
oath.
That's it.
Cool. So that's a no. Next question is, will this commission, speaking of you four, support the voice of the community to end police brutality and hold the police accountable? Is that your agenda? Yes. All right. Thank you. John, all on you, sir.
All right, we've got a good one that just came in from Lena Kennedy asking, have you studied other police oversight commissions whom have been successful to obtain best practices and insight?
Well, I'll speak for myself that being a part of CCOP, we've also been a follower of NACO, and NACO is the oversight body for the whole of the United States. And I've been to, you know, several conferences. The last one before the pandemic was in San Francisco. And hopefully, as a commission, we may be able to go to the one in December. But NACO focuses very much on all the different models around the country, and it focuses on what's good, what's bad, and what's blah. And also so one of the most, I would say, let me say, interesting models, I would, let me put it that, it is a model that actually came from Atlanta. And it's still being tweaked. And like I said, I'm a person that tells people do your research, because and then also another model is out of Detroit. And so, but once you start to delve into it, you realize that that was one of the reasons why we chose for when we were as a community discussing what we should have. This is why we should have an independent auditor and not just a commission. Because there's a level to it. And yeah, even though we asked the question before, what is this independent auditor going to do? Oh, we as a commission are going to task that independent auditor to work. Like, and some people can say, oh, well, he's going to work for the police, and he's going to he's going to side on his side. And it's a question that I was asked in the interview at Public Safety by Mr. Hampton, that if the city comes up with the result that I don't agree with, are we going to side with the city? Absolutely not. And so I said all this to say, to answer to Lena, is that my best resource has been NACO, and learning the different models and learning what hasn't worked. And one of the worst models was Seattle, where they had no subpoena power. They created a commission. The commission was under the city manager, and now they went to the ballot in the last election and got subpoena power. And now tweaking their commission to be better effective for the community, because the commission was created to be better effective for the city. Anybody else of my comrades?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Raul, go ahead.
I was just quickly gonna add, this is public information, but our independent auditor has gone on record saying that if the commission feels that he is not performing at the duties that we expect him to perform, he will step down. He will step down without any opposition. So he's made that publicly. That he's made that commitment publicly. So I just wanted to let the community know that as well.
Raul, let me ask you this though, because I have this quote right here. If I'm not the right person, I'm not the right person, right? And so who determines? He said he would step down, and perhaps we need to have a community conversation with him so he can introduce himself to the community. But he said he would step down. Does the commission have any say in asking him to excuse himself?
Yes, I believe that his judgment on whether he's doing the job effectively is based on how we evaluate him as a commission.
Okay.
Juliana?
I also want to say really quick, he's given us some resources and reading lists to do further research on our own, based on his many years of work in the roles that he's had with very many different cities and agencies.
Okay.
Juliana?
Thanks. I just wanted to stress again that Nicole is not only the leading source, but probably one of the best sources of information and education around the civilian oversight models that are possible. And just to say, NACOL stands for the National Association of Civilian Oversight in Law Enforcement. I too have been to workshops and conferences, and one of the key things that I learned in this journey is that there is really no one size fits all models. Every community's oversight model, those communities that have them, it looks a little different because it really needs to meet the need of that police department and that community. But it is wonderful to be able to learn about what other police departments are doing, what other community commissions or IPAs are doing to implement very proactive policies to improve the police department's relationship with the community. And I will just note that one of the big learnings for me that was very impactful was how civilian oversight, when brought into a community, because it was the community's desire, fares far better than when it is implemented or imposed because of the law. In other words, that something so egregious happens that then a judge mandates, right, that civilian oversight be implemented in a community. That rarely goes well for a community and the police department, but when the community really decides for itself that it's something that it wants, it just fares a lot better. So that is something else that makes me very hopeful and optimistic about what we're doing here in Pasadena.
So after going through 30 hours of training and the way that you guys were trained, do you feel that this was a way, or do you feel that this was created as a way to please the community, but not offer any real power or voice to us?
I'll just say that in terms of the police training that was provided to us these 30 hours, that I am hopeful that this will not be the only training that we receive. I'm expecting that other commissioners will join in the call for us to collectively have training and education in other areas as well. We need to do some diversity, equity, and inclusion training for ourselves as a body. We need to do some training and some centering in the Pasadena experience and to learn more about Pasadena history and what that relationship has looked like between the police department and community members. Like, we need to be informed and trauma informed care, right? Esprit, like I know that's something you're passionate about. So there's other things that I'm hoping that we will learn together in time that will benefit our commission participation and benefit the way in which we are showing up to make policy recommendations for the department. None of that has been set in stone, right? The ordinance only specifically listed the 30 hours required from the police department. And I expect to be making a call for us to do more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would say ask me that same question at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what else we have, Brandon?
Good
John?
answer. That's a good answer.
Because-
I think we have 15 more minutes left. So if you want to take it away, I can ask one more, or John, if you have one more.
You can go ahead, Brandon.
All right. One of the questions is from Heavenly. She says, "Are you all more sympathetic towards police now that you have went through this training?"
Sorry. There's a yes and a no.
I was wondering if that was the answer, but go ahead.
It's a yes and a no. I mean, they have, like you said, they have a heck of a job. They're about having to knowingly or unknowingly walk into violence, right? And you know, I'm not about that life, but and there's, you know, and they've got families, they've got everything, but sympathetic, not really, because it's a pay scale. You know, at the training, my fellow commissioners saw me the whole day. They had taser training, gun training, simulation training, and you know, and from the very beginning, I was like, I'm. That was not something that I was going to engage in, because you cannot expect a civilian just to have this 5-minute experience of what you do every day that you are trained to do, that is in your pay scale to do, and then expect that civilian to say, I understand your story. No, I don't. So I didn't pick up, no gun, no taser, because that form of training to me that's ongoing. Like when you went to the range, the police officers have to go there. I don't want to say this, but maybe weekly or monthly to keep training at the range. They go to pick up the gun, and they go to shoot and shoot. So they're forever being trained. They're forever. We went to the simulation. They were saying, we go on these trainings, we go on that training. They're forever being trained on something, right? Our 30 hours cannot compass to even stepping into the shoe of what a police officer does. Even the ride along. I think the ride along for me enforced the fact that out of all the incidents we went to, 4 of them were mental health that really could have been done by somebody else, and not police officers. They could have been doing something else, and it could have been another model greeting those incidents. And so sympathetic, no, not really. Understanding, I'm going to continue learning, and respectfully. That's what I say.
That shooting training is intellectually dishonest. anyway. So let's call that what it is. I mean, it's set up for you to fail. You know, Spray.
Most folks don't know, but there were two things that happened on my blog last week that required the police to show up. I don't feel sympathetic for them in their role because they don't show up with sympathy for people in that moment. There was a DV incident. As a DV advocate, something else should have happened that day. But 10 cars with 13 officers showed up, and the person didn't actually barricade himself, but they took it as that, and he was met with, again, 13 officers and firearms present, and Leslie was present, and only because I was standing outside and another neighbor said something, I think are the reasons nothing happened, because there were 10,000 ways that was going to go bad. The second incident involved a minor child who eloped from the school up the street. This poor baby, likely on the spectrum, unable to articulate what his issue was, and he was made to sit in the back of a police car by himself to be transported to wherever he was being transported to without any sensitivity to the fact that this child is in the middle of a crisis. So, like Florence said, somebody else should be showing up to some of these things. With DV, yeah, you don't know how it's going to go, but the call was a lie, and I know that because I witnessed it, but the officers didn't ask witnesses. They just showed up because someone called it a lie. I'm pretty sure that's how we lost Kendrick McDade. So they're not doing their due diligence to be sure that the bases are covered when it could be something else. So am I sensitive to what their job is? They know what the job is when they take it. Part of the problem I feel is that many of these officers are not from Pasadena and they don't have any connection to make sure that our city streets are safe as possible. And part of the problem is that, as it was mentioned earlier, they're not getting trained on anything but how to shoot. How to tase.
Okay.
I can't be sensitive to that.
All right. Thank you, Esprit. All right, folks. It's 8:20, and again, we're going to honor your time tonight. We thank you all for being here. Last one for all of you guys, and what's your goals individually on this commission in the first year? You can start with your Esprit.
So I think when the light bulb went on for what my goal is, was on my right along. I was assigned a Black man to ride with, and there was an incident at his home with a tree that fell in his yard. So I was replaced with a white man to ride with, and that caused for us to have to connect as humans. In all the interactions after that, I've made a personal point to have conversations so that we can connect as humans. And I think that a big part of the disconnect with our community is that the representation that speaks on the behalf of the police department doesn't speak from a human standpoint, with no empathy or concern. And so my goal is literally that when met with the opportunity to connect as humans, but the drive for, well, I also want to encourage the community members in District 1 to speak up. Because that doesn't happen because of the lack of trust. But I'd like for them to, like Flo said, police reports, police what was that? Complaints don't get responses, and you confirm that you got a response 4 years later. It may take some time, but I'd like to encourage people to speak up when there's an issue, because if they're not going to advocate for themselves, we can't rightfully continue to advocate. Things have to be documented.
Okay. Juliana, then Juliana, then Raul.
So it's an interesting question for myself in particular, and probably for Flo too, because I'll remind you that our appointment is for a one-year term with the possibility of being re-elected for another one-year term. So I am really thinking about the short term, right? And how instrumental this first year will be for the success of this commission. And so I would say that I'm really focused on making sure that this commission works well together, that we respect each other, even though I know we will not all see eye to eye and land on the same page at the end of the day as we're making our recommendations, but we do that with great admiration and respect for one another and what we're bringing to the table, and also for the department and the huge responsibility that we as the public have entrusted the police department with, right? And know, that it, just because we are critiquing and pushing and demanding that it be better, does not mean that we are in opposition to the department. We are in favor of the department being a better department, and I have always, you know, sort of joked with the chief about this, because he says, "Oh, you know, you just want the police department and officers to be perfect." Yes, that's exactly what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for perfection. That's what I demand of my police department. That's what I demand of the healthcare professionals that are helping me and my family, right? Anyone that we put in trust to both preserve life and has the power to take it away, I expect perfection. And so what we will need to do as a body is to work well together so that we can push our department to be a better police department. And I think that will be the foundational work we'll need to do in year one.
Thank you, Juliana. Raul?
My goal is to push for changes on a policy level that create safer interactions for communities that are most impacted by Pasadena PD, and to